All right, Charles Moskowitz here. Welcome to the program, Monday through Friday, 10 p.m. to midnight Eastern Standard Time. Stan J. Catterbone is my guest from the Advanced Media Group. Stan, I think it's safe to say that you are a whistleblower of what might broadly be called the deep state. What is happening with your case, Stan?
Oh, wow. Well, the retaliation has been amped up. Uh, it's torture on steroids in every way, shape, and form. Lately, they're using toxic fumes, like sort of like mustard gas light in my home
Mm-hmm.
daily and nightly. I have exhaust fans, but they don't work. So I've got to open up openings on both sides of the home to get them out. You can't breathe. You just can't breathe.
All right,
Now, if
well,
that doesn't,
Stan, yeah, I mean, it sounds really scary, but let's, for the sake of my listeners here, why don't we start from the beginning and just talk about what you had done, what your career was in the government, and then how this whole damn thing started to happen.
okay. In 1982, a Pennsylvania state legislator called me up. I was trading some stock with him, small things, and asked me if I wanted to buy shares in a defense contractor who was local. It
Mhm.
was called International Signal and Control. So I bought 1,000 shares, didn't think much of it. Then I was working as a financial advisor, financial planner for IDS American Express. I left and formed my own company with several people called Financial Management Group Limited.
Mhm.
Then in 1987, this company came to me and wanted me to finance some operations, which I had the capabilities to do. I could finance anything from $300 to $100 million on the debt side, and we could raise quite a bit of equity if we wanted to for different types of projects. We were a one-stop financial firm. We had accountants, attorneys, real estate brokers, property and casualty, everything in one house, and
Mhm.
financial planners being the crux of it.
Mhm.
Uh, we were in 5 states within 9 months. Anyway, so they came to me and we wanted me to finance some operations. Something didn't smell right. I smelled fraud, and the gentleman left. And I had a locksmith come and change my locks to my office. At the same time, this was going on. I was in a joint venture with Tony Bon Jovi and Power Station Studios in New York to develop the first digital movie.
Mhm.
Tony's one of the leading recording studios in the world.
Yeah, sure. Bon
Anyway,
Jovi, sure. The band, right.
I had patent work done and this and that. Anyway, they took me out. The deep state more or less took me out, isolated me. They turned everybody against me, said I was crazy. Then in September of 1987, they filed 5 felonies and 4 misdemeanors on me,
Mhm.
saying I broke into my own office and stole my old files, essentially is what they did. Well, at the end of 87, International Signal Control merged with Ferrani of England. It was a $1 billion merger. Then in 1991, they got indicted, and ISC developed and patented the cluster bomb. So they were routing all types of technologies from Lancaster to South Africa to Saddam Hussein. And they merged at the end of 87. In 88, they dismissed all my criminal charges, dismissed everything. So
Mhm.
I was out of business, out of everything.
Right.
And in late 80s, I helped develop and pioneer CD-ROM technologies. So I did a lot of work for the government, did work all over the world.
Mhm.
They covered me up again because I started talking to attorneys. Well, in 2005, I filed my own litigation. Most of it, the crux of it was antitrust. I was extorted out of millions and millions of dollars, so on and so forth. Well, at that time, they hit me with microwave weapons, crippled me, pain, and everything else. Now it's Havana syndrome is now what it's known as, but In 2005, it was relatively, nobody really knew what it was. They can hit you with pain, they hit you with synthetic telepathy. It's the stuff Manchurian Candidate is about. Now, before that, my father was Navy. He was part of MK Ultra. Now, I didn't know this in the 80s. They brainwashed him, used him as a covert courier, and sent him overseas to deliver messages to other spies. He built a dry cleaning business. He was a very smart man. Anyway, they used mental health wards on him. My brother was Air Force. They used him in the LSD experiments of MK Ultra. So since 2005, I've been in federal courts filing a variety of litigation against the government, local, state, and federal. And I have amicus pending in the Nicholas Cruz case. The anniversary is just Monday. My amicus was recorded May 2nd, 2018, and I filed, I think, 11 or 12 motions in that case, and the judge still hasn't ruled. It's still pending amicus. Now, his interview came out a couple years ago, but they just re-released it. If you watch Nicholas Cruz interview right after the shootings, he talks about the voices. There's no doubt, he was a victim of synthetic telepathy and the Manchurian Candidate stuff. Now they're trying to put him to death, and his sentencing hearing has been delayed and delayed. Now it's scheduled for April 2nd. And I have other litigation all over. I filed an amicus brief for Sirhan Sirhan. The prison board approved his pardon, but the governor stopped it about a month ago. He did a final decision. There was a doctor, Dr. Pepper, who filed the case and is convinced that, it's the same thing with him. He was a Manchurian. He didn't actually shoot him. And half the Kennedy family came out a couple years ago and did a campaign where they said they didn't believe that Sirhan was the killer.
Right. Or I've heard some interesting interviews with Sirhan himself.
Yeah, he doesn't remember anything.
Well, that's just it. I mean, the general synopsis is that he probably was the killer. However, there was some tampering with his brain. I mean, there was this. He remembers going to this, to the hotel and then suddenly blacking out, and this woman in a red dress gave some kind of dress. I mean, there was some kind of a signal that triggered an event, like that there had been a mental tampering with him. And, this kind of thing, I mean, as you say, I mean, MK Ultra was a CIA project to figure out how to alter people's behavior, both individuals and on a mass scale. And that a lot of this kind of research happened right after World War II. The Soviet Union was doing it also. Great Britain was doing it with the Tavistock Institute. There's congressional testimony about this. The Church Committee looked into a little of it. Maybe they might have opened the hood a little bit on MK Ultra, but it's kind of accepted history at this point. It's public history. And that, Stan, you and your family were wrapped up in this, both as participants and as victims, it seems to me.
Yeah, I was able to, in 2009, I got thrown, I applied for grad school, something to do. My litigation wasn't that busy. And in 2009, I applied for Social Security disability under being a victim of US sponsored mind control, and I was awarded benefits. There's no mental health issues in my file. So I was able to convince the Social Security Administration I was a victim of US sponsored mind control.
Right. Now, would you talk a little bit about that? How did that happen, and what actually happened to you in terms of mind control?
Well, they were remote. It's called remote neural monitoring, and Edward Snowden leaked part of this out, where they use satellites or line of sight to tap into your brain. Your brain is all electric, so they can tap into it with low frequencies and connect just like to a computer. Now, once they do that, They can put voices in your head. They can control body movements, create pain anywhere in your body.
Can they
So,
do this to anyone that they want to do it to, or is it?
oh yeah, they can do it to anyone. They can do it to locations. They could hit a block if they wanted, or a
Are they
city.
are they doing this to people? I mean, what do you know
Well,
anything about? I mean, I don't think it's at all far-fetched to suggest that this government or any government today or historically wants to control people. I mean, you look at this, the way the pandemic has gone down. With due respect, I'm not going to get into the, too much, here. I know I couldn't talk about this on YouTube. I'm not running this on YouTube. But, it does seem to me that there's a lot of sort of mass manipulation through fear and through, and I mean, I've seen people behaving in a certain way that's, that's not rational, in terms of that they're so fearful that they're doing things that, are not commensurate to an ordinary threat of a disease. And I think that we can't dismiss the possibility that the government might have engaged in a massive mind control propaganda campaign to get mass submission, and that they mean to do this perpetually. I mean, even now, they don't have any intention, as far as I can see, of giving up the lockdowns of people, the lockdowns of businesses, people covering their face like as a burqa in ancient Islamic countries, if they go into a business, or if they go, children being put in masks. Now they're starting the vaccine. We could talk about that. That's a big subject. I don't know if you want to go there, but the point is that there's no question in the news that they are planning to give these vaccines to 3-year-old children. And the bizarre thing about it is that mass numbers of people are just lying down and they're compliant with this. There are, I'm not saying this because I'm not hopeful. The truckers in Canada fill me with hope. There are people who are, I mean, if we don't get behind that and we don't support them, then it's over. This is a chance for people to wake up, because they're never going to stop this unless we tell them to stop it and unless we get them to stop it.
well, there's a couple different things that I want to discuss. First of all, there's different gradients of mind control. There's subtle things that people can do just in communications. Now, that's the low spectrum of mind control. Not everyone that is under mind control hears voices. They also can use mind control to give you confidence, to make you do things that you wouldn't ordinarily do, by subliminally giving you confidence and telling you you're doing a great job, you can do this and you can do that. So there's different variants of mind control. The second thing is that not all mind control is state sponsored. There's criminal elements that have access to these technologies. Now, back in July, I filed paperwork with Zoe Lofgren, who's the chair for the Capitol 6 riots. It's my theory that those people were hit with microwaves just to give them an edge and make them a bit more destructive than they normally would have been.
And Stan, I don't think you're the only one who has suggested this. There was something very fishy going on there, because, look, quite frankly, this is not how Trump supporters behave.
No, exactly right. They were turned them into extremists.
Yeah, I mean, this
You're
is
right.
what you expect from like Antifa, who are looting Black businesses and burning Black neighborhoods all summer, and who burned a church right across the street from the White House that had been attended by every American president going back to Madison. And yet the mass media was manipulating the minds of the public to such a degree and in such uniformity that people.
Oh, yeah, they have a lot to do with the corporate
Oh, yeah.
media.
And then that people somehow thought President Trump had done something wrong by just
Right.
pointing this out. But I mean, that's propaganda that has been embraced. But what we're talking about here, besides the fact that the whole narrative around that is unraveling, with people who are involved with as FBI assets and as Capitol Police opening the door, and just all, it just looks too fishy. And they never caught these people who placed pipe bombs outside the day before. That, what you're doing here is you're taking it another step further, and you're suggesting that people were manipulated mentally around, the Capitol. I mean, it was.
Well, you look at their backgrounds, the people's backgrounds who participated. They didn't have backgrounds as being extremists. A lot of them were
And
veterans.
the thing is, most of them really weren't extremists. I mean, you had, of course, Ray.
They were that day, though.
Well, yeah, but Ray Epps, who is never
Right.
in charge, he's there. Let's storm the Capitol, right? I mean, it's just and there was now apparently this video of other people doing this as well. And you get them, they look very strange with the Trump hats. And
Well, listen to
also,
this.
yeah,
I don't know if you're aware of this, but Lancaster County is home to some of these groups. The Oath Keepers started from Lancaster County. And
right.
there's other extremist groups from Lancaster County. On September 6th, there were, I think, 6 tour buses, over 400 people that left from Lancaster County
Okay.
for the Capitol riots.
Well, first of all, Stan, I mean, I don't know all that much about the Oath Keepers, but I don't believe that they're extremist. I think that the Oath Keepers basically are retired military men and women, retired police officers, retired first responders who were simply forming an organization, a private organization, to help stop Antifa from attacking Trump supporters. They would go to these events where Trump supporters, including senators and, mothers and innocent people, would be, they'd be throwing acid in their face, and they would be committing all kinds of terrorism. And that the Oath Keepers prevented a lot of this. They prevented a lot more of it than we realized. So I don't view them as particularly extreme. They certainly are not white supremacists. First of all, a large percentage of them don't happen to be white. There's nothing to do with it. And, any of these kind of charges, the usual lies that are pushed by the media, they, the problem with the Oath Keepers, like any conservative group, and the same thing is true with the Proud Boys, is
Right.
that they're infiltrated by agents, agents
Yeah.
provocateurs, who
Provocateur.
know how to direct them. I mean, in a way, look, I mean, it's almost ironic to say this, but if we got rid of the FBI, we would get rid of a lot of this terrorism in this country, because they have had their fingerprints on just about everything. I mean, the first World Trade Center bombing, one of the top guys there was an FBI agent, and he did nothing to stop the bomb from going off in the basement of the World Trade Center. That was the first one. I'm not even talking about the second one. But you see this kind of thing going on all the time. The attempted so-called kidnapping of Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Of the 25 people charged, more than half of them were FBI assets.
Well,
and
if you
that
look
was sort of maybe that they say that might have been a trial run for the January 6th event.
If you look at the mass shootings, the ones that have a link to mind control, they all get a pass by the FBI and local police. In other words, they're all being surveilled. They all have a history of interviews and things like that, yet they're left alone to commit their crimes. That's a trend with Stephen Paddock, with Nicholas Cruz.
Okay, some of these like lone gunmen, this kind of thing, where all of a sudden something triggers and they're off and running. I mean, years ago, I interviewed the late Jim Keith on this topic, who wrote, he's a good reporter. He was not particularly ideological. He was basically liberal, who fell into these stories. And he wrote the famous book, Black Helicopters Over America. And he ended up frankly passing away in mysterious circumstances. I don't want to get into details about that. It's too ugly. But he talked about this. He wrote about how, the Oswald and some of these other murderers, that they had been tampered with mentally
Right.
by what we might euphemistically call elements of the deep state. I'm not here to indict all people in national security. It's just there is maybe at the core, or at least peripherally, a very dangerous and very corrupted element. And that's what you're trying to expose here, Stan.
Did you ever see the documentary Shadowgate?
No.
Like two whistleblowers. Essentially, what it is that a lot of these security outfits, a lot of the national security agencies, CIA, NSA, FBI, a lot of what they do is they contract out a lot of surveillance and a lot of influence campaigns, which is propaganda and trying to influence people, to private contractors, security firms.
Mm-hmm.
The Flynn brothers have a security firm. There's a lot of security firms out there. And Shadowgate is a documentary of two whistleblowers of how they used influence campaigns and social media to target individuals and make them do what they wanted them to do. So
the Flynn brothers, you're talking about Lieutenant General Michael Flynn?
Yes. I'm just giving an example of some of the security firms that, are out there.
Okay.
Anyway,
he seems to be on the right side of things.
Yeah, no, I'm just giving an example of a security firm.
Understood.
But yeah, what I'm saying is that these people work behind closed doors and nobody knows who they are. So
are they coordinated? Are they concertized? I mean, or are they just all sort of running their own show?
Well, no, they have contracts with like the CIA, FBI, NSA, DARPA, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's plausible deniability for the CIA, the NSA, and people like that. But they are under contract.
Let me just interject here also. I interviewed Professor Michael J. Glennon from the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy. He was a counsel for the U.S. Senate during the Clinton administration. He's an insider. He's still there. I believe he's retired. He wrote a book called Double Government, which was basically the history of the national security state, going back to when it was established in 1947 with the National Security Act under Harry Truman. So, and he talks about how they almost constitute a separate government. They are self-funded to the tune of trillions of dollars, billions of dollars. They have front organizations both in public and private sector. They have dark money from all over the world. They interact with and intersect with other national security groups from other countries, like the Tavistock Institute, like Mossad, like MI5. And this is an Interpol, and this is an international phenomenon. This is something that has metastasized all around the world, where they are sharing their technologies, they are sharing their activities.
Well, the company I blew the whistle
this is according to Glennon, as an established guy. I mean, that isn't some night. He's not some schlemiel with a tin hat. I mean, he's
direct links.
Yeah.
The company I blew the whistle on was a black budget program for the NSA and the CIA. The company I blew the whistle on, their first contract was called Project X for the NSA.
Right.
And what Project X was, they built listening devices, put them underwater around the Cape of Good Hope to monitor the Russian submarines, the traffic.
Right.
Now, Bobby Ray Inman, do you know who Bobby Ray Inman is?
The name, wasn't he an admiral, I believe?
Yes, he was an admiral. He was director of the NSA.
Okay.
He was deputy director of CIA. He was on a board of the company I blew the whistle on, International Signal and Control. And in 1992, Bill Clinton nominated him for Secretary of Defense.
Right. Okay.
Well,
yes.
The press got a hold of the ISC scandal, the company I blew the whistle on, and he withdrew his nomination. So
Okay.
Bobby Ray Inman was in a position, he was more or less the go-to guy to get the contracts.
What
for
happened? What happened with
ISC.
him after he was denied the nomination?
He more or less retired, but
Oh,
he was
okay.
on other boards. He was on the board of directors of SAIC Company, which is a huge defense contractor who also has links into mind control technologies.
All right. I want to bear down a little bit on the mind control technologies because, I mean, I mean, look at, I'm sitting here worrying now about this happening to me and happening to my family. When I look at what happened to you. How can I, using myself here just sort of as an everyman for anybody listening to this program who's wondering the same thing, how can I protect myself if possible from this? And how can I detect if this is happening to me?
It's impossible. You can't.
There's no telltale signs. I mean, there's nothing that I
No.
might
Do you
notice.
know who Dr. Robert Duncan is?
No.
Dr. Robert Duncan is a scientist. He has a PhD. He has degrees from Yale, Harvard, MIT. He helped develop some of these technologies, mind control technologies. And when he found out that they were being used on US citizens, he started going against the CIA, DARPA, the NSA, naval intelligence, the people using these technologies. And if you listen to any of his interviews, he describes in detail how they can use these technologies and how you really can't stop them. Now, he tried to insinuate that maybe Putin and Moscow has something overlaid where they can reflect the beams, the microwaves. Okay. Now, I don't know. He didn't elaborate whether we had them, but it's impossible to stop the frequencies. You really can't. And you can't detect them. You can't detect their source. That's the problem with Havana syndrome. First, we came out and we blamed the Russians. Then we blamed the Chinese. Then a couple of weeks ago, the Chinese demanded that victims like me and other people get compensated for our victimization. And the State Department now, they put out questionnaires for people like me back in September. We all filled them out, but there's nothing being done. It's a mess.
Well, Stan, well, by the way, what happened to Duncan? Is he okay or?
Yeah, he gives lectures. He
Okay,
gives interviews and,
sure.
Now they
Stan,
have non-disclosure agreements, so he can't sue and he can only do so much.
right,
He
and
can't do
he
anything.
probably he might be, sworn to silence about it, but
Yeah, they have non-disclosure agreements.
Sure.
All
I understand.
security people do.
Of course, anybody in the government does. I mean, I get
Karen
that.
Stewart's another one. She's an NSA whistleblower.
Who?
Or Karen Stewart.
Okay,
She's an
I don't
NSA.
know.
Barbara Hartwell is a CIA whistleblower who helped develop some of the PSYOPs programs. These are all people, experts that, have good research and good information on some of these technologies.
All right, so Stan, let's go back to your case. You're saying that you're being bombarded now with microwaves. They're sending carbon monoxide into your house. How have you survived this? And what do you
They
do?
break into my house on a daily basis. Here's what they did with me. They used my neighbors to harass me. They filed harassment charges against me and put me on probation for 16 years. And they said, and the charge was I knocked on my wall, which I never did, and stalked my neighbors. I've been in prison 4 or 5 times, all during Republican presidents. Most charges get dismissed, but that's how they do it. They do it that, and they use mental health warrants, put you in for a week or two and so discredit you. And they isolate you. I'm totally isolated. No friends, no family. I mean, I am isolated.
Are you isolated because people have disowned you because they think you're like a crazy?
Oh, they do more than that. They turn against you.
Look, I understand what you're talking about with that one. Yeah, there's, I don't know if that's also a product of mind control, but
Well, it goes with it. They soften you up that way. The
yeah,
torture is a lot worse when you're isolated. You have no support. Fortunately, I'm in courts, which protects me a little bit. And I have a monthly income, the Social Security disability. But, other than that, the criminal justice system, when they turn that against you, it's hard. I mean, I took 8 cases before the US Supreme Court, and I've got more coming. And I do the work myself. I'm pro se. And I'm
okay.
trying to get church hearings for these technologies. Other people are trying to do the same thing. And, they cheat. The courts cheat. They use clerks. When clerks cheat on your cases, change files or change documents you file, there's not much you can do. There's no recourse. You can file misconduct against judges, state and federal. But when clerks do the things, it's a loophole. I mean, it's frustrating. I get
No, I mean, look,
documents.
a good example, this is an opinion here, but is the fact that after the election, there was something like 50 cases of people going to their state courts and their local federal courts with with affidavits and with claims of voter fraud that they had either experienced directly or they had witnessed. And I believe every single case except one never made it to the courtroom.
Oh, I know.
And I think that to me, it's very strange. It shows that how corrupt the entire judiciary is. It really makes me question the independence and the honor of our entire judicial system if it could be that corrupt. I mean, in the one case which actually made it inside a courtroom, the judge, and this was a judge in Wisconsin, he took a look at the case and he said, look, this is a real case, but I'm not going to get involved because this is politics and I want to stay out of politics. Now, I mean, that to me is outrageous because
Well, there was a guy who
get involved if there's something that's a crime. That's why we have a separation of powers.
there was a truck driver back at the elections who swore that he drove a van up to New York.
Yes, from Long Island. He drove
Right, and it contained
York
$200,000 to
County,
$300,000, 200 or 300,000 voting ballots
already filled out. He was on Sean Hannity.
already filled out.
This happened in broad daylight. He wasn't the only one either, but yeah, I mean, this was a couple of days
Well,
before
it
the
was in
election.
Lancaster County. That's where the van was.
That's right,
It
Lancaster
came back
County.
to Lancaster County.
Exactly.
Then they discredited the story. Then they said they couldn't find the guy. He didn't exist. I mean, there was a lot of that going on.
Oh, I mean, it all happened in broad daylight and everybody knows it. But, it's just interesting that there would be kind of like, I don't know, have they perfected, we're talking here about individual cases of mind control where technologies, radio, microwaves literally will target a person and implant things in their heads and do stuff to them. But do you think they have the engine and the ability at this point to engage in the kind of mass mind control that was originally patented by Edward Bernays in his famous book Propaganda, which was published back in the 1920s?
Well, they have the capabilities. They certainly have the capabilities. There's no doubt about it. I mean, if you look in the past 6 months after the diplomats in Havana came out in 2016 and said they were hit with something that mysterious, no one knew what it is. Then in 2018 and 19, it came out that it was most likely microwaves. Now, since then, we had CIA agents over Moscow come out and say they were hit. We had diplomats in China, all over the world. FBI agents even came out in the past 8 months and said they were hit with these microwaves. So now it's getting to be burdensome for the government because you can't source the microwaves. You can't say Russia did it. We didn't do it.
Who has their hand on the microwave machine?
Well, Everybody, most of our allies have the technology and the capabilities.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah, I mean, is there any connection between this and all of these companies and DARPA, by the way, which bragged about this on 60 Minutes recently, developing computer chips to implant in people's heads? I mean, I think that
Elon Musk, Neuralink.
yeah, Neuralink, he's open about it. He says that
Well, they're
everybody within the next 5 years, everyone in the world is going to have a chip implanted in their heads. And by the way, people like Alex Jones, I'm not endorsing everything he's done, and I don't agree with some of his things, but he did blow the whistle on this about 2 years
oh
ago.
yeah, he had a lot of these experts on his shows.
And,
Alex.
and now you have it's out in the open. You had 60 Minutes did a segment where they actually went to DARPA and they interviewed some of the scientists there who looked so gleeful. Oh, this guy's eyes were practically bugging out as he talked about this wonderful chip, which he showed everyone that will be implanted to detect disease. I mean, it all sounds so wonderful, with the way they describe it. But
Well, Elon Musk thinks he's going for FDA approval this year. He thinks he's going to get trials this year. He's looking for subjects.
I think it's already being done in Sweden, I understand, where people are volunteering already for this. And given the, look, I get the fact that there was a real virus that killed people. It probably came out of the biolab in communist China. I get that, and that it was gain of function, and it's an ugly thing. But the fact that it's been used in such a way politically by people who are just willing to surrender all of their freedoms and their minds as a way out of fear, it would not, therefore, given their reaction, and I think is very well observed. I think it's not at all impossible for large segments of people of the world to accept this chip in their brain. And this idea that anyone that won't accept it, just like those who do not want to have the mRNA vaccines, are going to be seen as, evil and responsible for terrible things. And it's sort of like, separating out the Jews from the Nazis during World War II. People could end up being put away into camps and just lose all of their ability to have any sort of freedom.
Well, artificial intelligence is all tied into this, and now they're capable of building robots.
Right.
Human robots that look human with artificial intelligence.
Oh yeah. I just saw a segment on Lester Holt. I mean, I have to watch the normie news because certain members of my family make me watch it, and so I do, where they were talking about a new supermarket in Georgia that is having all computers do everything.
I saw that tonight. Yeah, I saw that.
And that this is so cute. And look at that, they say thank you, and they make it look so charming and so lovely.
Well, now they have robots, personal assistants for people with disabilities that talk to you. I mean, they communicate with you back and forth using artificial intelligence.
Yeah, and they have
They have sex robots.
I was going to say, yeah, I mean, this is the Drudge Report has been covering this. People are like substituting their spouse, for this.
And they look real and act real.
Oh yeah. And they
really,
and obviously they have the dog robots, which we've seen, and that are now being used by police. Now, I mean, to just imagine the dangers involved with this.
Oh my gosh!
I mean, if you just think about this,
slippery slope.
They could conquer the world in a minute. I mean, these things can be programmed in such a way that they can't be stopped.
They can't be stopped. If you study, some of the theorists out there that really research and delve into this stuff, that's the problem. You can't stop the artificial intelligence.
I was listening earlier today to Steve Bannon's excellent program, War Room Pandemic. He has this guy on who's a real expert, this guy, Joe Allen, who I'd like to get on this show. He's really very good. And he was saying that already one of these companies, and he named several of them, big billion-dollar companies. These are competing with
Oh,
Google.
yeah.
And one of them says that they've already established the technology by which computers can have conscience, can become conscious. Now, I don't believe that. I mean, only a human being can have conscience, but a computer could imitate conscience in a way that actually could be superior to a human being, because it's not that they can't, a computer can't think. It only can integrate knowledge and then act on knowledge.
Well, they're using supercomputers. And because memory is so small now and so powerful, back in the late 80s and early 90s, I helped develop speech recognition systems and worked with DARPA and NIST. That was one of my projects.
Okay.
And, they developed speech databases of speech to teach computers how to understand spoken language. Well, now they're doing the same thing with artificial intelligence.
Well, I mean, I think that technology has been around for a while. I mean, actually, the Kurzweil Institute right here at MIT, headed up by
Yeah, they were part of it.
but by Stan Kurzweil, who is famously said that there's no such thing as God yet, that they're going to invent God. He developed in the 1980s the talking book, which was basically, he did it for Stevie Wonder. I think that's a great thing. I mean, you put the book in and it reads it, because obviously Stevie Wonder's blind. But the problem is that he's become a major figure in this this transhumanist thing that's being promoted by Klaus Schwab at Davos, and
Davos, yeah.
and they're almost cult-like. I mean, they believe that. In fact, I heard Joe Allen talk about this very brilliantly on with Steve Bannon, and he said that mankind is entering into a new era. We were in the original, like the primitive time, the pagan era. Then we had the Judeo-Christian era. Then we had the era of reason, the age of reason. Now we're entering into the age of artificial intelligence, where man is basically going to be replaced. These people are
obsolete.
Yeah, I mean, they're radical evolutionists in that they believe that man is going to evolve into a new species that's going to be half biological and half mechanical.
Well, that's where it's headed if no one stops it. There's no doubt about it if you study it.
Yeah. It's really, it's an amazing subject. It gives me the creeps to talk about it.
Yeah, it does.
That's why that's why I was avoiding calling you, Stan, because I'm like, oh, do I really want to go?
I get that all the time.
Yeah, it's very tricky stuff. So, Stan, what is happening now with your case, and what can anybody do anything to help you, because you're dealing with this thing?
Well, you know what they did
alone and very courageously.
First of all, they sabotaged 2 of my mobility scooters, hover around and things like that. I had 2. They sabotaged my car. I had to sell my car. Financially, I need help. I tell people I'll sell them stock. My company, I can issue stock based and pay people back upon settlements.
Right.
Some of these people are going to have to settle with me sooner or later. My research, I'm an expert in IT, information technologies.
Right.
I was published, when I worked with DARPA on one of the leading CD-ROM publications. I helped develop CD-ROM technologies. So sooner or later, with the research I have in the documentation, back in 1987, I had 10,000 pieces of paper microfished and preserved court recordings of people, from back then till now. So if you look at my documentation, there's no way you can discredit anything that any of my allegations. And that's why I'm such a high value target. And that's why literally they're trying to kill me.
How can you stay safe?
It's hard. I work at it every day, but I saw my father go through this. So I learned from him. That helped me. I was more or less a little prepared for what was coming down the pike with me when they started at me in 1987. The hard part is I had to create a barrier against the police. The Lancaster City Police that arrested me and gave me the 17 years probation did the same thing to my father in the 60s and 70s. Same thing. Wiped him out, extorted all his money, his properties, his assets. Same thing. Same model. It's COINTELPRO. They use COINTELPRO synced up with the mind control technologies.
Right. Stan, I mean, I wonder if there's not, you've mentioned the name of a couple of other people who are whistleblowers. Is there some kind of a, and not, maybe you could, the word underground might accurately describe it, but a movement of people like yourself who are fully conscious of what's going on, who are working together and who
You can't.
it
That's
makes
what
me think
people
of the
think.
Ayn Rand novel, Atlas Shrugged, where everybody
You
goes to.
can't because of the surveillance and the infiltration.
Okay.
You know that they infiltrate you. People will connect to me on LinkedIn. I have 2,800 connections on LinkedIn.
Right.
I bet you half of them are phony, fabricated, just to
Right.
infiltrate.
Yeah, it's like
And
the
you don't know.
it's like the January 6th attack. Half of
Yeah,
them were like
right.
obviously trying to derail the opportunity in Congress to reveal the secrets. But I mean, just to comment on that, I am weirdly hopeful that we are going to get to the bottom of that. I think that this most recent revelation from Special Prosecutor Durham is a
Well, he's
hopeful
delving
sign.
into that Shadowgate stuff.
Is he? Because
Yeah, well, they're coming around to
well,
that form of reasoning.
I mean, he pointed out, and he's very careful. I mean, I worry about him, but he's pointed out now that Hillary Clinton campaign and which is the establishment, the Democratic Committee, all these people, they hired this law firm who had cyber experts who basically were able to surveil President Trump's private email server in the Trump Tower, and in his business, and even in the White House, they were able to monitor him. That's why we kept getting these stupid, embarrassing little things that he said this and did that. Nobody questioned, gee, how do we know this? I mean, this is personal. We know it
Yeah.
because they were spied. They had bugs. I mean, they were, they were eavesdropping, and and Trump very naively. I mean, he said to the people in the White House, says, "Can anybody hack into my server here?" And they go, "Oh, of course not. This is the White House. This is
Yeah,
the
I
most
know.
secure server in the world." So Trump believed them. And in
They're
fact,
hacked as much as anybody.
but now you have Durham exposing this, and I think this is big. I mean,
I remember when Trump was at Trump Tower, when he started his campaign, when
yeah.
he said they were surveilling him.
Oh, they were like put on it's crazy,
Yeah,
paranoid.
right,
This
right.
is not provable,
That's what
and
they do.
they get very technical about proving everything.
Right.
And meanwhile, I mean, I think though this is damaging to them. I think that they recognize the fact that Biden is not competent and not his very low opinion of him, and he's not functioning. Who knows what whether he can even tie his shoes at this point, and that
Well, see,
Vice
I
President
know
Harris
Trump
is
way
even
back.
worse. She's disliked and not respected. So I think they were actually thinking of resurrecting old Hillary as the figurehead. And already they were setting up puff pieces, and they were going to give her the Führer treatment, where she was going to be put on the front of magazines, the new Hillary, and they'd show her straddling the country with like the Statue of Liberty. And she was about to give a major speech, and it looked like this was all happening just at the time that Durham released his report. And I think it's completely shattered that. That's over. I don't think they expected that. Just like they didn't expect Trump to win. It
You
wasn't
mean Comey? When Comey released it?
no, when this is what Durham released
Oh, just
right
lately.
now. Yeah, just
Oh,
2
yeah.
days
Okay,
ago.
right. Well,
And
Comey did
now,
the same thing.
well, yeah, but the point is that with Comey, he had to do it because there were some
Right.
patriots in
Sure.
the FBI. He didn't have full control of the FBI at the time.
Right.
And I remember watching that press conference where he basically laid out absolutely damning evidence that she had been involved with, basically running these bad deals all over the world for slush funds into the the Clinton Foundation in exchange for favors, and including with the Russians and the uranium deal. Even the New York Times wrote about that, and the the top secret emails. But then at the end of the press conference, Comey said, however, we've decided we're not going to prosecute.
Yeah, he was damned if he did and damned if he didn't. If
Well,
he sat on it, he was
didn't-
doomed. And
Well,
if
he
really
couldn't sit on it because there were too many people in the FBI at that time
that knew.
who were patriotic and who wanted,
Yeah.
who were not corrupted. So he had no choice. And the same thing happened at the end of Hillary's campaign with the Anthony Weiner laptop.
Weiner, right.
He had all of these secret files on his laptop, which he called insurance.
Right.
And Comey had to release that because if he didn't, there were too many other people in the FBI who would have done it. So he had to get in front of it. He had no choice. But I think that now with the release of this Durham report, she's not going to. That's not going to happen. I mean, she's gone into hiding. Usually she comes back with a zinger. Whenever they have a scandal, including somebody passing away mysteriously. And now nothing. She's disappeared. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It makes me feel a little hopeful. I mean, that these people, they don't all get along. Maybe the Biden people had something to do with this. They don't want to have her there. You know what I mean? There's a lot of internecine activity, and that maybe with all of that, there can be some balance between thieves and crooks, fighting within. I don't know.
Yeah, I was invited to the Clinton Foundation back in 2005.
Yeah.
I was invited to go way back then. But Trump, I developed a free agent football camp and got my brother into pro football. He played for the Dolphins.
Wow.
In fact, my nephew, his son, starts for Army right now. He's at West Point.
Mm-hmm.
So Trump back then was putting money into the USFL.
Okay.
So I've been an admirer of Donald Trump way back.
Great man, yeah.
I used to watch
I've been an admirer of him since I read The Art of the Deal many years ago. Just a very unusual man, very great figure. Anyways,
well, he's never failed at anything he's attempted to do.
No, he hasn't.
He's never really failed at anything.
And something. I mean, I don't know if he's going to run again, but I mean, I don't. That would be miraculous. I think he'd win, but I'm not sure. That's a hard one to what he had to go through and what his family had to go.
Why he would want to, I don't know.
I mean, the absolute
swampland down there
they had thrown, and it's disgusting and just rotten. But yet, I don't know. He might, if he does, then we'll all be blessed. And I think that this Durham thing is going to turn people to feel more sympathetic toward him, and I think people miss him. Even though there's this mind control conditioning that tells us that he's bad because for reasons that nobody can quite articulate, which is why I do think that there's something a little funny going on with this campaign. So Stan, where to now? What else is happening with you? I mean, how can we help?
I guess financially is about the only reason I can think of.
Okay.
Without they extort cash from me out of my accounts. They break and vandalize my property every day. There's stuff vandalized, broken, and I have to replace it with my Social Security disability money.
Right.
And I can't, I can't. They always make sure I don't get ahead.
Yeah.
Well,
I hope to do my bit by having you come on with me and
that helps. That helps me a lot.
Get this out to people, I guess, and maybe see if you can shine some light on this. But anyway, Stan, but I just want to thank you for joining me and be well.
Thank you, Charles.
Please stay safe and please be well.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right, Stan, take care. Have a good night.
You too.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.